You're listening to the Wake Up Wealthy podcast.
What is up, Wake Up Wealthy listeners? Welcome to the Wake Up Wealthy podcast. It's your host, Brodie Kern, and this is the show where we show you how to max out in mind, body, spirit, and business. Today, we have Mr. Patrick Vellner with us. Patrick, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Brodie?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So for those of you who do not know who Patrick is a top CrossFit athlete. Really at the top of the game, the top of the entire CrossFit world. I'm super excited to have him on. I reached out to him via Instagram DM. We connected, had a chance to make it happen. I think he's going to bring a ton of value for you guys. Patrick, for the listeners who haven't heard your story, maybe haven't seen some of the documentaries out there, tell the listeners a little bit about who you are, what it is that you're currently working on, and how you ended up on this podcast.
I guess, I don't know. It's a bit of a snowball story. I just I was involved in lots of sports growing up. I was a gymnast primarily for a long time. And then I played a lot of lacrosse as well. Finished my high school, moved away from home. I grew up in Western Canada. And I kind of wanted to get away and just sort of, go somewhere different. I was going to university and figured if I was going to be a broke student, might as well do it somewhere different and somewhere fun.
Right.
So I ended up moving to Montreal. I did my undergrad at McGill University there in kinesiology. And I started doing some CrossFit there with just guys I met.
Hold on just a second, Patrick. I was losing you there. It was cut down. So you did your undergrad in what? Can you say that again?
Yeah, I did an honors in kinesiology.
Okay.
So a lot of movement science, health science, that kind of stuff, biomechanics. Right. Just stuff that interested me because I was an athlete growing up, right? And I was kind of looking to get into some sort of a healthcare role, mostly because, again, I used a lot of therapists growing up in my athletic career. So, and I started doing this CrossFit thing with some friends I met from school. Rather than work out by myself, I started doing some training with them. And I didn't really know much about it when I started, but they had been doing it for a little while. And back then, the season would progress. You would do this big competition called the Open that you could kind of sign up anywhere, and you'd rank yourself globally against other people. And I quickly realized that I wasn't very good at it. But I'm a pretty competitive dude, and I don't like that. So the one thing about CrossFit is there's a lot of metrics to measure, and you can always kind of be progressing in some place. So there was a lot to work on, and I took on the challenge, and I just figured every day I can get a little better at something. So spent a year working at that. And
so you weren't good when you started?
No. Well, I was athletic. There were some things, especially coming from a gymnastics background, there's a lot of elements in that sport. You do a lot of gymnastic style stuff. You do a lot of steady state, rowing, running. You do a lot of weightlifting, powerlifting. But I had never done any weightlifting or powerlifting really. Because everything in gymnastics is so body weight oriented, and it's better to be light. It's better to be, that sort of stuff. Just I had no background in it and no base, so I had to spend a lot of time building a foundation in that stuff, which was cool. It was a new challenge for me. It was something that sort of got my interest because after spending a lot of time in gymnastics, it's a sport that really kind of consumes everything.
Yeah. So did you do gymnastics all the way through until, this point, childhood to 18, 19?
Pretty much. Yeah. I was from the time I was 8 till I was 20 about pretty much. I was probably competitive. And then so it was something cool. So it was different. It was a new avenue. I took a little bit of time between before I started university to travel a bit. And just I'd finished competing. I needed time away from sport to reset. I was a little burnt out.
Yeah.
It was cool. I was kind of at the point where I was ready to sink my teeth into something, and having retired from sports really left a big void because that was a lot of my time was spent doing that growing up. So it was cool. And then, like I said, I tend to try to excel in anything I do. I think that's just sort of a habit you get into. So I really wanted to improve and want to get better. And there's sort of this natural progression to the season in CrossFit where, you advance to the next stage if you're good enough, and then you advance to the next stage if you're good enough. So the goal was, the next year I want to try to get to stage 2. And then I did. And then the next year was try to make it to the World Championships called the CrossFit Games. So I made it there the next year competing on a team with some friends, and then went to the big show on the individual side the following year. And I've been on the podium ever since, actually. So 3 years
So your first year was 2016 on the individual side?
on the individual side, yeah.
Okay, so I think I remember watching the documentary where you were the new guy.
Yeah.
And you came in and just smashed it. So like there's a lot to unpack here. So
Okay.
bear with me. You know, for everyone listening, I mean, obviously you're a competitive guy, a competitive gymnast, but you come into CrossFit, mentioned that, you know, you weren't that good. And part of that's probably you being humble. But, you know, another part, like you had to learn a whole new game, haven't power lifted, haven't done some of these movements. But like not everyone can be like, yeah, I just want to get better and got in the habit of that. Like clearly you have something internally, some grit, some tough, like sort of tough mindset that allows you to grow and become a top competitor. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was nurtured in my sports growing up. I think that you have some role models and some coaches and people that when you grow up, they shape you into that sort of mindset. And I talk to athletes a lot still who you know, struggle with their competition mindset, or, you know, they have trouble competing and they prefer training and things like that. And I've always been someone who excels in competition compared to training. I have a really, I don't mind it. And I think that the steady, consistent, like the long game is something that I can get into. Whereas I think some people really lose focus on their goals over a long period of time. I'm good at, you know, managing my goals into smaller chunks and setting short waypoints and keeping myself engaged and focused on what's next. Yeah. And I think for me, like I said, it was easy for me to get into it because there was a whole new dynamic that was new to me. And it was like, all right, I'm way ahead. I'm way, by far and away, more advanced than I'll ever need to be on the gymnastics side of things. So like I can put that down. I don't really need to do anything with it. And like I still don't really train my gymnastics skills much, but I'm really good at them. I've been doing it forever.
How many other people at the competitive level of the CrossFit space have a gymnastics background?
On the men's side that competed at the games in the last few years, maybe like 4.
Gotcha. And how many men compete at the games?
40.
40. Okay. Okay. That gives me a good idea. These guys are all probably from more traditional sport backgrounds, right?
Well, you see, everybody, that's what's kind of fun about it, is everybody comes from a different place, but most people came from some sort of a high-level competitive sport. It's really an area where people get into kind of after you've run the course of your initial sport or whatever you really liked. You sort of retire from that, and then, you know, you've got all this competitive mindset. You have the willingness to work. You've got all the pieces in place and know where to put it. So it's easy to get engaged and involved in CrossFit and say like, hey, like this is something I can do with my energy. Like it's an outlet for my competitiveness, and it's just like it's a healthy outlet for all of that stuff. So, you know, there's a few guys that come from a gymnastics background. There's a lot of people who come from power sport backgrounds, like football, you know, like hockey players, people like that.
That's what I would picture.
Yeah. And they're the opposite of me. Right. So they came into the sport and they were super strong, super powerful. But you tell them to do a handstand or do like a muscle up on the rings and they're lost, right?
Short range and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So they have to work a lot more on building, that strength in different ranges of motion and learning more dynamic skills. Like the high skill movements are probably come less naturally, but you know, it's just, that's the thing is it's cool because we come from totally different sides. We had to work on the opposite side and then everybody meets in the middle. So then at the top end, really, everyone's pretty good at everything. Like there's not a lot.
They would have to be, right?
Yeah. So it becomes a game of, you know, who's prepared the best, like who's healthy, who stays involved, like keeps their mind in the game, the whole competition. It could be 3, 4, 5 days of competition. And you've got to be able to stay on your mark the whole time and stay focused on the end game. So
would you say that anyone in the games, in the, you know, competitive men's circuit at your level is far superior to anyone else, or is everybody physically pretty equal?
I would say so. This is actually it's a point of contention, probably depending on who you ask. But
right.
there's right now the same guy has won the last 3 years, and he's quite handily, yeah. So he's an exceptionally talented athlete, works super hard. Like you can't take it away from him. Like
are you guys friends?
He deserved to win. Yeah, we're buddies. But he's great. But do I think he's like physically that much better than everybody? Like I don't know about that.
Right.
I think outside of maybe like if you narrowed into like the top, say even the top 10,
Okay.
the guys who finish in the top 10 by the end of the weekend, like everybody's got the tools. But a lot of times it's funny how much momentum can play for or against you. Like, you know, you have a couple bad events and people sometimes have a really hard time.
Dude.
Yeah, getting themselves back on track, right? And, you know, there could be an event that is perfectly suited for you and you take like a 15th or a 20th in it, and that's something that you could have finished top 5, top 3 in, but you just like, I don't know, like you were like out of steam, your head was somewhere else. You kind of entered the event a little bit defeated before it started. So Matt's really good at staying on track, and he just like every event he does, he competes hard in everything. He doesn't let points slip, and he's really good. But I think outside of like 10, maybe 20, 10, like 10, 15, yeah, there's guys that are like probably on any given day, the guy would beat them, right? But that top 10 will shuffle up depending on, you know, it just like I tell people like I've done well at the games in the last 3 years, but I think that you plucked me out at any other random week throughout the year and put me up, like a lot of those guys are just as fit, if not fitter than I am.
Well, you know, that question hadn't even occurred to me until you said that some individuals, you know, prefer training and struggle in the competition side of things.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a huge mental game there. Not only like having to
you see it in any sport and in
but you guys are on a big stage now. Like that shit's popular.
Yeah, it's cool. It's fun. It's fun to be able to do that once a year. But the reality is that you know that's 1% of the time. So it's a bit like it's a tough game to stay focused and keep training and work hard for that. And I personally, like, I periodize a ton. I'm still going to school, so as soon as the games is done, like I stop training like half as hard and I go back and refocus on other things. I catch up where things I let slide, and I pick up a lot of loose ends, and then I do that for a good 5-6 months. And then it's time to like, okay, I got to get fit again, and I got to get back on track and be who I'm supposed to be come August, because like that's when it's going to matter. And I'm really good at that. Like I'm good. I have a great coach that we periodize well, and we're good at that. But like I said, the average week of the year, I'm not one of the fittest guys you'll ever see, but you know, for 1 week a year, I'll be up there.
Okay. So talk to me about this question. Because obviously you're a guy who has studied kinesiology. You're obviously probably an expert in nutrition, in the actual performance, the science behind CrossFit. You know, the question comes in like, you have a coach, what are his credentials, right? Like, just talk to me about the importance of coaching.
Yeah, so my coach is a woman, actually. Her name's Michelle Latondra. She's so she was a games athlete as well. She was a competitive CrossFit athlete for, I think she competed 6 years at the World Championships before she retired. She's from Montreal. I knew her when I was living in Montreal. So when she retired, we kind of just connected, and it was a good fit. She is a former weightlifter as well. So she had good skills in areas that I didn't, and a lot of knowledge in the areas that I needed. So it was a really good fit. And she's just smart. She's been on the circuit for a long time. She's been working with a lot of different coaches. And I think when you work with a lot of people and you're in that environment a lot, you pick up the things that you really like or the things that you don't like. And so she's kind of developed a good coaching style. And for us, communication is the most important thing. Because you're right. Like I'm not an idiot either, but the way our relationship works is like, she's the coach and I'm the athlete. And like, we communicate well, but like at the end of the day, she programs for me, she makes the plans, and then we'll talk about stuff, maybe strategy for events and things like that. And then I go out and I execute the plan. So it's a team effort, and I do my job and she does her job. So, you know, like there's times, especially training for like a big competition, and training is really hard and it sucks.
Yeah.
Some days I look at what's written down and I think like, you gotta be kidding me. And there's certain areas where we'll disagree on things and we'll go back and forth and we come to an agreement over something, and then we'll do that. But at the end of the day, like I like that she does that because it takes that off of my lap, right?
That's what I was about to say. That's got to be a huge
nutrition. Yeah, same with my nutrition. Like I could do it, but I don't, because it's too much time and energy for me to be doing that all the time and thinking about my training and thinking about my school and everything like that. Like you can't. So I always find that the more things you can outsource, if you have the means to do it, is great. It keeps you. So now when I show up, I can be focused exactly on what I need to do and do it to the best of my ability. And then when I leave, I give all my feedback, and we talk very openly about things that happen in training. Like, I'm very vocal with her, and it's great. Like, she'll give it back to me, and we have a really good relationship. But, and that's why it works, is that, you know, if I think a certain thing, I'll let her know. And then maybe next time things will be a little bit changed, a little bit different. I let her know how I feel at the end of certain days, or like how certain pieces went. And so it's a constant evolution. Like, it's a constant learning process. So she's really good at taking the feedback and then learning from it all the time. And now she's been working with a few other top end athletes as well. So it's cool. Like, I think it's constantly in flux, and what works for me doesn't necessarily work for them, and vice versa. So, she's great at paying attention to our needs. And like I said, she's well read. She researches the stuff. So as far as a lot of the training principles, like, I would have to look into it and do my homework to think I was going to do a half decent job of programming for myself. Like, I'd want to, there's a lot of things to keep in your head, especially when you're thinking about periodizing for a 12-month year. Like,
like, let's talk about periodization, because like for me, so like, goal setting in the space of entrepreneurship is a huge topic, right? And I have this really like different view than everybody else. Everybody else is always talking about how important it is to write them down, look at your long-term goals every day. And my brain, like, I set, and I talk about this a lot. I set goals to reverse engineer small chunks, daily tasks. Like, I focus on the day in front of me, single focus with as much energy as possible. So for you, like, not having the nutrition on your plate, not having the programming on your plate, like, just being able to put 100% into the actual training has to be what all of the athletes are doing, correct?
And I think it depends. I would tend to agree with you. Like, I've done courses on the psychologies and things like that, and I'm not a huge fan of some of that stuff. I think it's kind of fluffy for my taste sometimes. Like, I'm a bit too pragmatic for that. Like, I don't need to like look at words and be like, oh yeah, you know, whatever, like, read that and it's going to pump me up every day. Like, I don't need that. And some people do, and that's great. And what if you need it and it helps you, awesome. But I don't know. I just don't have the space for it. So like, I'm similar to you in the sense that, yeah, like, I have people who help me with stuff. Like, I have spreadsheets of, you know, my nutrition, like what I'm going to eat, when I'm going to eat it during the day. Same with my programming. Like, everything's based around. So I'm working in a chiropractic clinic right now, and going to school at the chiropractic college in Toronto. So certain days, you know, I have to be at the clinic between these hours. I have to be at school between these hours. So my training is scheduled around those blocks. And so like the night before, I'll look at my schedule for tomorrow. I'll be like, okay, like, I'll get all my food together. What do I have to eat and when? All right, get all that planned out. When do I have to be where? Okay, I gotta be at the school this time, gotta be at the gym at this time, gotta be at work at this time. And then when it's time, when I wake up the next day, I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to like flounder for a second and be worried about, oh man, where am I going? Like, and feel like you're being torn in a bunch of different directions. Everything is linear. It's like, all right, step one, like, I'm eating this for breakfast. Boom.
That's
I'm going here. Step 3, I'm going here. Step 4, I'm going here. And like, everything is just like, you just walk through the paces. Once you've organized your day, like, I just walk through all the paces. And then like, by the time it's, you know, some days if I'm not working in the evenings, like, I'll be home by 6 and like, I'm done everything. And then I can do a little bit of extra time of whatever schoolwork I may have, or if I just want to relax and read a book, like, I'll do it. But different times of the year, the priorities change for me. That's the one issue with the periodization, is that, you know, if it's competition season, I'm spending more time at the gym. I'm spending more time training. A little bit more focus on my nutrition and whatnot. When it's off season, like right after the Worlds are done, like after the games, I might not even train for like a few weeks, or like do some very basic stuff. Like, maybe I'll go outside. It's the summer. Like, go play sports with your friends, reconnect with some people that you've maybe neglected for a little bit when you were being super diligent trying to like achieve your goals. But at that point, you know, I'll be a little bit more slack on my nutrition. I spend more time catching up on schoolwork, doing extra work at the clinics, things like that. Because the way I see it, it's like you have a bit of a limited energy source per day. So all that outsourcing, that sort of saves me some of that energy. The organization the day before, it saves me that energy. I don't have to think about it the day of. I can just like walk through it. You know, there's no extra mental energy going into figuring out when I need to do things, or how, or why, or whatever. It's all laid out for me. And then same thing, like, my training takes up a certain bubble, and then my friendships take up a certain bubble. My school takes up a certain bubble. And at different times of the year, one bubble might be much bigger than the other. Like, when I'm coming into the games, that training bubble is huge and everything else takes a hit. And I just don't have the time or energy to put into certain other things. But those things are still important to me. And so once that's done and that training bubble gets to shrink to almost nothing, everything else gets to take its space back, right? It's like there's only so much space in the room and you can't keep adding things without taking things out. Like you need to at certain times just accept the fact that like, hey, I'm going to have to put this down for a second. So when it comes time to like refocus on school, I work ahead as much as I can. I work as hard as I can. So that come time to put that down a little bit, I can afford to do that. And then I can refocus on other goals. And it's just sort of like a constant shift and a constant juggling act of like, what's the most important right now? And so like that periodization follows with the competition season. And then it's a priority shift.
So when are you going to start training for the games this year? Like aggressive? Is this year the year you win?
So we'll see actually. So the thing about this year is the system just changed. So now
Tell me about that.
So the old system was like they had this open competition where everybody did. It was an online competition. You do an event one workout every week for 5 weeks, and then rank everybody against each other globally. And you're kind of split into regions in the world. So if you finish top 20 in your region, you go to the next competition, which is called the regional competition, where, it'd be like top 20 in this region versus top 20 in that region. And it's a live competition, 3 days, and the top 5 from that event will go to the Worlds. So then that ends up with 40 guys at the games, and it's done. Then you crown your champion. So it was like 3 stages. Whereas now they just changed it so the Open is a big event again, but there's no regional competition anymore. So people are going to qualify directly from that Open to the games based on either finishing top 20 in the world or being the winner of your country. So, and then there's another way to get in, which is they have multiple large events around the world. I think there's 15
qualifiers
that will each send only the champion. So whoever wins that event will be invited as well. So I actually did one in January in Miami. There was one. The first one was in Dubai, and Matt Fraser went there and he won it. And then the second one was in Miami, and I went there and I won that one. So we're technically, yeah. Cool. So they did say that the Open will still be valuable because it will help seed the athlete. It will give you like a heat ranking or something like that. So I'm still going to do it, but there's really no pressure. So at this point, I've changed my programming, and my coach has changed everything so that rather than being, gearing my training to be the best at this stage of the competition I can be, I'm really playing the long game. I'm doing a lot more foundational stuff, like, building some strength,
you don't have to play the competition game. Yeah.
So I don't have to be crazy right now. I'll still probably be reasonably competitive, and it's still, there's pride on the line, right? Like I'm still going to try, but I'm not trained for this competition. So it's sort of like,
the ultimate goal this year is place first.
Yeah, exactly. So now I have the whole time until the games in August, basically. So I'm going to compete once more in May just to have a little trial run and see where I'm at. And then, so I actually I finished school in May. So I'm going to be able to train a little bit more
Excellent.
And have a little bit more time for a couple months leading in. So that'll be the first time I'll have that real scenario. So it'll be interesting. I think I can tighten it up a little bit this year, but like I said, Matt's not going to roll over for anybody, and it's going to be a hard fought battle. So,
well, dude, that's very exciting. Like, I mean, you're talking about almost like you were in contention and have been to be the best in the world at this shit. Like I've had, the opportunity to be around some of the best people in the world at their respective, things that they do. And it's unlike anything else. Like, so, I mean, let me ask you this. You are about to finish. What are you going to school for? To be a chiropractor?
Yeah.
Okay. And, what's the game plan? Like, so there's a lot of questions I have around like the business of CrossFit, which we'll get into, but like, so what's the game plan? Compete for as long as you can in the off season, start your own practice. Like, what's that look like?
Yeah. So I'm kind of in a weird situation right now. Just because, so my girlfriend, longtime girlfriend, is in medical school, and she's going to get her residency placement in like 6 days. So right now, I actually don't even know where I'm going to be, because in the next year we'll move there. So I don't even know where I'm going to live. But once that we figure that out, I'll be able to decide, okay, do I want to try to work or set up? And I think in a perfect world for me, I maybe figure out a way to work, a couple times a week, 2-3 times a week, maybe, and do my own thing so that I can be free to travel and do some seminars or do things like that. Like there's a lot of cool opportunities to see the world and do it, while people are happy to have you. And I haven't been able to take advantage of it yet. It's been like 3 years now that, the market's there and people want me to come, but I can't because of all the people I have here. Yeah. So it's really, it's been painful, Brodie. I can't even tell you every time I have to say no. So I'm looking forward to just being able to say yes to some things. So I'm going to definitely try to take advantage of that, see the world a little bit. I think the opportunity and the window to compete, especially at the level I'm at now, is not big. The window's closing. There's probably not that many more years that I can really take advantage of to compete at a high level. But if I'm smart and I do the right things, and build a brand around myself or around whatever, I can still continue to exist in that space for years to come, and maybe still have opportunities to whatever it is, coach or teach seminars or do things and be a presence on in that space. So that's kind of the plan, is to figure out in the next bit. Maybe I don't start working as a chiropractor right away. Long term, I will. But, maybe over the course of her residency, which is a few years, I just focus a little more on competing, training, building my awareness in that space. And then I try to parlay that into either building a huge practice afterwards that's focused on athletes or whatever, or, I definitely have an opportunity to penetrate the CrossFit market, which is a market that uses a lot of physical therapy. So, there's a lot of opportunity there, and I'd be silly not to take advantage of it. But in the meantime, there's also other cool opportunities that I'm trying to explore and take advantage of as they present themselves. It's trying to get to the ground to see what's out there, because there's cool opportunities that I don't even know about yet that are going to pop up in the next couple of years, and I'm trying to be available to do some things, and just keep my eyes out for what's out there.
Well, I'll tell you, in my experience, you're in a really cool spot. I didn't even know you were going to school. So a little bit about me. We haven't connected really much before this. So I dropped out of college when I was 21 to go to rehab. I had a very bad past with drugs and alcohol. I've been sober for years now. And that's kind of what led me to social media. And because of that, I started building this brand, and all these opportunities that I never saw opened up. But my question is, dude, you're in the driver's seat. You've got a good following, right? You're in a space where you could do a lot of cool shit. Like we were talking about before, you're the best in the world. People will pay to come do that stuff. You could have a lot of fun. Earlier I was thinking, whenever you were talking about your coach, I'm like, there has to be money in being the best CrossFit coach on the planet. So,
yeah, I think particularly her. She also coaches the woman who finished second last year as well. So after last year's competition, she got a lot more attention and a lot of following, which is cool. But she's trying to kind of control that so she can still, I think there was the opportunity to blow things up to a level where she would lose a certain amount of control. So, that's always the gamble, right? Or the question is how much do you want to control everything? How big do you want to blow things up?
How do you want to build the business? Right.
Yeah. So it's just, there's a lot of little things in there.
Let me ask you this. So this is just out of my pure curiosity, and it'll give value to listeners. What does the business of CrossFit look like? Not CrossFit itself, but for a CrossFit athlete, right? So the question really is at this point in your career, are you making any real money from CrossFit?
So I'd say that there's a lot of sponsorship opportunity now, and particularly in the new format that they just made, with all these more global competitions coming around, and CrossFit, the company, has sort of taken a step back from running these events. So it's opened up a lot of space for people to step in and fill those voids. So I think that now in the next couple of years, there's going to be more opportunity for athletes to compete more in a worldwide circuit and potential purses and that helps sponsors because it increases visibility. So if companies sponsor an athlete in the old system, I'd only really compete in visible competitions maybe twice a year. And that's great if I'm doing well, but if from a sponsor side, you want to see your asset be more visible, and there's more opportunity for that now. it's funny though, like always the gamble, and even like what we were saying before about like, you know, trying to take advantage of opportunities that exist in the space. The question is always, how much can you afford to do? Because the gamble is the only reason I'm a valuable asset in the space is because I'm really good. And like, not the only reason, but you know, like that's one of the forefronts is like, I perform well, and I do it consistently. So like, that's why companies want to work with me or whatever. And I like to think I'm a reasonable personality, and I'm okay to deal with. And so they like to work with me. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, if I was like, I could be the best guy in the world, but if I finish in last place, like no one's really watching. So I've built opportunities by being a good competitor. But if you spread yourself too thin and, you know, I try to travel too much, or I try to compete too much in the year and burn myself out.
You could not even place.
Yeah, I show up to the competition and I'm not the Pat Vellner that they want to see. And I'm not, you know, and then you fade away. Like the irony of the whole thing is like people want you, everybody wants a piece of it, right? Like everybody wants you to do this or do that, or like they want you to kind of.
There's a real dichotomy there.
So, but the only reason they want you is because you've been so good. But if you went and did everything that everybody asked and you tried to do it all, you wouldn't be any good anymore. But like, that's the irony of it is like, you have to be really careful, especially when you're still planning on competing at a high level. Okay, like what can I say yes to? What do I have to say no to? And you do have to sort of plan your year almost. Like, even as funny as it might sound, like I'm already kind of thinking about next year, like the season's going to start earlier in the year. Like how many times can I afford to compete in the year? And at what times of the year should those be, so that they're reasonably spaced out and I have, you know, I don't have to travel too much. I don't have to do whatever, like, or I can like link different parts of travel up with competitions where, like, say I go somewhere and I do a seminar and then I compete in competition there, and you get you kill two birds with one stone. But you do need to organize your life a little bit. Otherwise it's going to be very hectic and a lot of travel and a lot of that just breaks your routine down. Right. And it's boring, but like, those routines really are helpful for people trying to perform at a high level and you know.
Man, it's everything. I even know, like in my life, if I go on a streak of speaking events, I come home and everything's just fucked up.
Yeah. And you know what? And it's really hard to get back into your routine after you've kind of broken it really badly. Whereas if you go on a few weeks or months of your home and you're in your routine, everything's it's smooth. Everything flows easily. Like I said, you don't even have to think about it. And I mean, my roommates and stuff will get on me every now and then because, like, it's boring. And, like, you know, when I'm training for the games, like, I eat the same things. I sleep at the same time. I train at the same time. I do the same things, like, every day. And it's like, yeah, okay, it's boring. But then I go to the games and I do well. And then I've got my freedom back as soon as that's done. And I'm willing to make that sacrifice. That's just, like, part of playing the game. But when
it's funny.
And you do whatever, and then you come back and all your habits are broken, to like restart that engine and rebuild that momentum, it's hard. It's really like, it's brutal. The first day you're like, oh, and then, you know, the second day you're still like dragging your feet around, and it's hard to get your wheels turning again. But then once you got momentum's everything. So,
dude, that's so interesting that you bring that up, because like I get asked a lot, like because I've been able to accomplish a fair amount in a short period of time. So I'm 25 years old now, and I went to rehab when I was 21. And, you know, I've built quite a few businesses over the last few years, done this thing with, you know, personal branding and all this shit. But like, really what it comes down to is like, I'm not the most talented. I'm not the smartest guy out there, but I'm disciplined as fuck. And I'm consistent as fuck. Always. And it's the little actions that everybody seems to not be able to do. And I say it a lot, like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
How you do everything. Yeah.
Right. Were you always a super disciplined individual or consistent individual?
Yeah, I think so. I think I really like I like that like linearity of things. And it's funny, I have two brothers, and I'm the middle. My oldest brother is he's an absolute, he's completely the opposite. He's like a complete gray zone thinker, and he's all over the map all the time, you know, got 100 projects on the go and half the time wouldn't finish them. Right. But I'm very linear. Like, I like to do something, get it done, see it through, and then like check it off the list and move it out of the way. Mm-hmm. And so like, I like that. And so like I said, it's some days when it's like routine, I love routine. Routine is your best friend as far as I'm concerned. And it's not like sexy and glamorous, but it gets things done. It really gets things done. And it's the simplest stuff. You're right. Like sometimes, especially like speaking of like breaking habits and being hard to get restarted, like whenever I'm in a funk like that, like sometimes it's the littlest things that will get you back on track. It's like, you know, I'm not getting anything done. I feel like I'm procrastinating. So you just make yourself like the easiest, stupidest to-do list of all time. Be like, all right, like just like make your bed, pick the clothes up off the floor, do the dishes.
Get momentum, get the mental wins.
And then you're like, once you've like checked those 3 boxes, you're like, hey, here we go. I'm on a roll. And you feel good about it. And then you're like, hey, what's the next task? And you're ready to take on another task. And then you just start rolling. And like, the more you can just step right from one task into another. And especially, it almost seems silly, but the smaller the tasks, the better, because you just keep getting that feeling of accomplishment. And you keep being like, okay, nice. I did that. I accomplished that. I finished that. I did that. And then like, the more you finish a task, that feels great. And back to what you said initially, way at the start, is like, when all you ever do is focus on goals that are so far away, you deprive yourself of that, and you don't get that sense of accomplishment. And half the time you're looking up and being like, holy crap, this goal is so far away still. Then you forget to look behind you, right? And see like, oh, how far have I come? Like I'm actually miles from the start line, but I'm just still miles from the goal. And it's less tangible, but those little things, daily tasks, all that little stuff is so tangible. And it just feels good. Like you get a high off accomplishing a bunch of small tasks. So like I said, if you need the momentum, it's just give yourself the most menial, stupid to-do list and just check all the boxes and you'll feel good.
You know, dude, I love that because I live by that. So every morning, like my routine, are you familiar with the project management software Trello?
No.
So anyways, it's this software. I have my whole life laid out on this software. And in the mornings, you know, I literally have check boxes that are like, wake up, work out, meditate, do like my gratitudes, affirmation practice, and then like cold shower. That's the last part of my morning routine. So I've got 5 or 6 check boxes on there that I literally have to check off. And they're so stupid. Like obviously I do this shit like on autopilot, but getting to check those boxes before I start my day every day has me feeling good. Like I'm the man, you know?
Yeah, fire you up for sure. That's a good way to start the day.
Yeah, little things like that. It's the head game. So, okay, so like let's hop into routine. Tell me about what your routine looks like. And obviously it's different right now than when you are competitive, like really training for the games. So maybe tell me whatever your favorite routine is, lay me that out.
Okay, well, like right now I basically am on like it's every day is kind of different, but so like Mondays are off. I don't train on Mondays. It's like an admin day. It's like life admin. I try to sleep in a little bit and I do whatever emailing, admin stuff. You know, if I have to deal with contracts, things like that, I do that. I run errands, and that's why I like having my rest day on a Monday, is that I can actually go and do things. If I have to go to the bank, if I have to go wherever and just run random errands, I can do that. And I get like my week's worth of admin stuff done on the Monday. And then Tuesdays I'll train. Right now I work in the clinic Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Tuesday, Thursdays are 12 to 8. So I have the whole morning off. So I get up early and I go to the gym and I do all my training in the morning.
How much are you training?
Right now it'd be like, I don't know, 2.5 to 3 hours in a day.
What about when you're training for the games? How much are you training?
I'd be like more like 6 hours probably.
No
it's
way.
It's different though, because you split it up a lot. So in a day of training for the games, like I might have 3 different sessions. It's like, okay, I'm going to go, I do a session of training. That's like, you know, most of my bulk of my training. And then I go off and I do something else for a bit. And then I come back and I do another session of more accessory work, like whatever, core work, skill work. And then I leave and then I come back and then I go to the track for like an evening session and I just do intervals of the track. And like, that could be a day. But it really depends. More days are going to be like multiple sessions. So right now, because I'm not really training for competition, it's basically one a day. Kind of 6 days a week, 5 or 6 days a week. So like that's
interesting. I want to go down a little rabbit hole here, dude. I think skill work is like the fun part that's missing from my life. So like right now, I love to lift in the weight room, but also right now I'm training for a 50-mile ultra marathon in the fall. And I've never run before until December. And now I'm running like 30, 40 miles a week. Nice. And so, you know, I'm still putting in time in the gym in the morning, and then at night I'm putting in serious runs.
Yeah.
Like you said, skill work, and I'm like, fuck, that must be fun. because I feel like I'm just trucking away right now.
Yeah, you're doing grunt work. See, and
Yeah.
like this, the reality that what's kind of fun about training for CrossFit is there's a lot of like, it's anything, you know, like even at the games, we've had obstacle courses, things like that. And like,
Yeah.
I love that stuff, you know? So it's like some days it's less about, you know, killing yourself and it's more polishing movements, making sure that, you know, you have movement efficiency, you're moving well, especially even when you're tired. And so it's like lowering loads, making sure that, yeah, you're weightlifting, like your body positions are good, because that's going to keep you healthy. Like, so some days when you have multiple sessions, it's not like multiple sessions of like kick the crap out of yourself, you want to die. You might have like a couple pieces in there that are like that, some like intervals on the bike and like some hard workout. And then it'll be like, you know, a session might be just all strength work where you don't want to have high heart rate, like conditioning things, because you want to like, you're building a strength base. And it's competing energy systems. So you'll have a session that's more of that. You might have a session that's more conditioning bias, a session that's more, you know, gymnastics skill bias, making sure that your movement patterns are good. Because like that's movement patterns are super important, especially when you're going to be, you know, pushing yourself to a level where movement might break down. So in a lot of those events, the guy whose movement breaks down last is probably the guy who's going to win. So yeah, a lot of that is just important. Those are just extra pieces. And so when you're adding sessions and trying to add training volume, you will burn out if the way you add volume is just by adding like another hard workout. Sometimes it's less about doing that. And like, even for you, and probably there's some sessions that you run where you're not running at a super crazy pace. It's just like, you got to log some miles. It's for your joints, like adapting your joints, doing things like that. Like there's just different ways to train, and it's important to like take advantage of all the tools that you have.
How are you measuring your output? Like, do you have any sort of activity tracker, like recovery metrics that you're monitoring?
I have one. I haven't been using it recently. I have a Garmin watch that does a reasonably good job, and I have a Whoop strap that does a reasonably good job.
Whoops are so okay. So I just bought the best Garmin watch I could find, the Phoenix 5 Plus. I went to the running store and I'm like, what's the fucking top tier one? But like
Forerunner, but
dude, it's like, it's kind of I don't love the thing. I might take it back. It's kind of bulky. It was like $850, and it does not track my activity that well. It logs my runs great, but I think yours probably could do that. And
the Whoop ones are like reasonably good for any activity, and it gives you rough estimates on calorie burn and stuff like that.
I've had a Whoop.
Okay.
Yeah, so I for some reason I got hit with a Whoop ad whenever they first came out. So like now they've got this, you can buy them for $30 a month for whatever.
They do that. Yeah, that's right. It's all membership stuff now.
Yeah, I paid like $600 to get it on pre-order, and I got it. And honestly, I used it for a long time, but I had just bought also a really nice watch that I loved and I couldn't part with. I was wearing it every day at that point, and then I kept getting this question all the time, like, "Are you wearing two watches?"
Yeah, I know. I got that all the time.
It used to fucking piss me off. So then I stopped wearing it. And now I'm measuring recovery with the Oura Ring. Have you seen this?
I haven't actually.
So OURA, I wear it when I sleep, sometimes during the day, but it measures the same heart rate variability metrics that the Whoop does during your sleep and gives me a recovery stat. So I was wondering if you use something. I knew that a lot of CrossFit athletes use Whoop.
So the only thing about here's the one issue that I have with it is like, data is good. I like data, and like my coach had access to all the data, and she would, use it to predict, say, like if I'm starting to have some CNS fatigue or something like that, like, okay, like we'll dial back some training for the next week and have a bit more of deload or whatever. But I think that, and I hear this from a lot of people, that the metrics mess with people's heads. If you don't know how to detach yourself from that, it can be really hard, because it primes you to think a certain way. Like people will look at it like, oh, like I woke up with like 30% recovery, like, and then all of a sudden they're lining up excuses, and it's like, I couldn't possibly, like, I had a bad day of training today, and I was at 30%, like there was nothing I could do. And like I've had the last year, I always tell people, because I used to wear it in the off season, especially a ton. And whatever, it was like I barely paid attention to it. I found the sleep data interesting, and it actually prompted me to develop a better night routine to give myself better sleep hygiene and just have a little bit higher quality sleep. Cause I never used to care that much and my sleep metrics were pretty bad. So it like some good comes out of it, but I think a lot of the work that I'm doing, I'm like, in generally my recovery is not that high because I'm training a lot.
World-class athlete training. Yeah.
Well, and then I'm at school and then I'm at work and I'm just like busy and there's a lot of stressors and it's like, it's tough. But if you get phased by that, like I went to compete at the regional competition this last year. And I ended up going to bed the night before the competition started, and it started with like a 40-minute event. It was like 3 kilometers rowing, 300 double skips, 3-mile run. And so I woke up in the morning and my Whoop was like, you're at like 20% recovery. Didn't sleep super well. So I just, I took it off. I threw it in the corner and like, here's the thing, ready or not, like competition's today. So
yeah.
If you're not, if I let that tell me like, you know what, you're not ready, like, people will go into the competition and then maybe they'll take a more conservative approach, or, they just, it's already in their head. They're like, oh man, I'm going to underperform today because I'm only at 20% recovery. And I know a lot of people that like, they started like staying up at night because they were stressed about being able to fall asleep because Whoop was telling them they needed to fall asleep. And it's like this cycle.
Yeah, that's it's funny you say that because I literally, and I'm not one to make like excuses. And for me, honestly, lately I've been like, I haven't been sleeping that well, so I haven't been that recovered. There's a lot of, my wife and I have a 3-month-old son at home. Like there's all sorts of shit going on in my life. And so I haven't been that recovered. And like, so last night I had to get out and run 8 miles. And like, I woke up yesterday with like 40% recovery or something. And I was just like, fuck, I still have to do this. And I'm always going to do it. I was a lot less positive than I would have been. Like the run could have been.
And I think that happens to a lot of people. And it's like, life goes on, man. Like I ended up, I won that competition by a landslide, but I started the competition at 20% on Whoop. And it's like, to me, and I've never won them in competition because the way my attitude about it is, even if I wake up day one at 100%, like that thing is never going to give you good news during like a competition. It's going to be like, you are pushing way too hard. You need to sleep. You need to stop. And that's all it's going to tell you is like every day your stats are going to drop more and more and more. And if you're looking at that during a competition, it's going to prime you to think a certain way. And you just need to get rid of that. Like it's like, it's poison in competition to me. It's like, dude, you need to just forget about it. Like, I know Whoop. I know, like, I know it's bad, but like, this is what we're doing. And it's like, you have no choice. So, and you know what, when it's done, I'll put it back on and whatever. But during competition, it was never even an option. Cause it was just never going to give you good news, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. So like, I'd rather just part with it for a little bit. And
you can't sleep that well at competition, like at the games.
It's like, it's hard. I think that some people are better than others. And some people just stress more than others. It's really depends.
I wouldn't even sleep a minute, dude.
Yeah. I've had days where I didn't sleep very well. And like I said, you show up the next day and like, I don't know, maybe the other guys slept like babies. Maybe they didn't sleep at all. I don't know. And you just like, you have to just figure it out and do as well as you can. So the one thing I have learned is that it doesn't help you to worry about it. Like, even if you didn't sleep well, like, you got to wake up in the morning and be like, man, I didn't sleep super well. Hopefully I sleep better tonight. And then you just have to put your best foot forward.
Let's talk about that. There's value in that, like state control. That's something that I talk about with my coaching clients a lot. How do you, when everything, the Whoop's saying, hey, you're fucked, you don't feel that great, but it's time to show up and perform. How do you get your mind right?
I don't know, actually. I don't think that there's like, I have a trick to that. I think that it's something I've learned to do, particularly because of my gymnastics background, where everything is very much, it's performance on demand. Like I could hit all my routines a million times, but when I show up to competition day, you need to hit it that one time. And that's all that matters. So it's there's a lot of high pressure situations. So I've gotten used to it. And I think that I just kind of live my life that way. It's like, you wake up and like, maybe it wasn't great. Maybe your sleep was bad. Maybe this is off. But like, when you get out into the world, like, everybody's got problems. Like,
nobody gives a fuck, right?
You know what I mean? Like, like, I just have to show up and do my job. And it was the same, like when I was training for the games and trying to go to work as well in the clinics, like, I better show up and be as good of an intern as I can possibly be, because like, that's what actually matters. Nobody cares that I went and did training two sessions this morning. They just care if I'm getting them better. And that's what matters. So really it's like just like focusing on what you can do at that moment. Again, it's like, what's the next step? Like what's the next thing that I can do in this day that's going to like
immediately in front of you.
So that whole, like, I think it's important is to reflect. Like reflection is important and be like, okay, I didn't sleep well. Why? And then like maybe you can come up with a quick solution on that right away. But to dwell on things, it doesn't help at all, and it's going to cause you more stress, and it's not going to solve any problems. So I think that it's really important to distinguish that line between like reflecting on something and dwelling on something. And yeah, like I just, like I said, everybody's got trouble that they're going through, and like I don't need to make my problems your problems. Like I'm a little bit tired. Like, all right, it's fine. I'm going to try to fix it for tomorrow. And like, you can try to learn from those things and build on them. But in the moment, it's all about task at hand. It's like, what's the task at hand? Like, what can I do right now? And how can I do it as well as I can with what I've got right now? Cause like, that's the situation we're in. Wishful thinking is great, but it doesn't really help you.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, I wish I was better rested. I wish I had more time. I wish I had this with me. Like, well, you don't. And so like, what are you going to do? And so I'm a big task at hand kind of guy.
No, that's great. That's great. And that's great for me because that's how I am. And that's what I preach. So it's something I came across your account, and I don't know if it's when I watched the new Fittest on Earth documentary or whatever, and you were in my mind, and I thought to check your Instagram, but something I knew I had to bring you on this thing, dude. Okay. Some rapid fire questions here. Who do you like watching the most in the CrossFit world? Like who are you rooting for besides yourself?
Like men's side or women's side?
Both.
So on the women's side, my coach Michelle also coaches Laura Horvath, who's from Hungary, and she's young. She's like 22, and she finished second last year in her rookie appearance at the games.
Who finished first last year on the women's side?
Tia Claire Toomey. That was her second time winning in a row.
Fun to watch. She's a tough chick, dude.
She is. But Laura's fun because she's got this youthful exuberance, and like she's young and bubbly, and I get to train with her now and then because we have the same coach. And I always find that when I work out with her, she's super fit, and she's just like this Eastern European like machine. Right. But she's also this like 22-year-old girl, right? And so she's super fun and bubbly and like pumped about the whole thing still. Like she was her first game, she finished second, and I feel like at this point in my career, I'm like this weathered, like cynical
like grumpy old
so it's funny, like we have like a very interesting dynamic where I feel like she's this like puppy dog who's like so pumped on everything, and I'm like complaining about everything and whatever, but she's fun, and she loves it. So she's fun to watch. I think she won like 3 or 4 events last year. She's just like, she's going to be a monster. So, I'm rooting for her. And obviously she's like on my squad. So,
right. That's a win.
And I don't know, on the men's side, let's see, like Matt's fun to watch cause he's just like dominant, but you can't say Matt.
And then, so quick question on like Matt too. So I was just, doing some quick research. Like Matt has a significantly larger social media following than anyone else.
Yeah.
Why is he so big? Other than the fact that he's won
3 times.
Right. But like, I mean, should that be the difference in your almost 400,000 followers and his 1.5 million? I don't think so, dude. Like you got the same screen time on all this shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there's something to be said about the way he does things, and he's very he
is polarizing as fuck.
Yeah, so I think that people love that. They latch onto it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And then, so have you seen that translate? Okay. Is there a monetary prize for winning the games?
Yeah, I think this year it's 280,000 US.
Okay, and then so is that around like what Matt has made the last couple of years, like whatever his check was plus some sponsorships, or like is he doing other stuff?
He does lots of other stuff. I mean, not lots, I'd say, because again, his focus is on winning the game. So I think you have to cut out some other things. But definitely, like he has a lot of sponsorship, and I'm sure he makes good money through the sponsorship deals. Like same as I think a lot of the guys that are in the kind of top 5, especially that have been perennially there. Like people are making reasonable money, but it's not like other big sport money, CrossFit's just not there yet, right?
Ball player money, yeah. Has any CrossFit athlete really launched and been successful with supplement line yet?
Their own supplement line?
Yeah.
There's a couple that have started stuff, but I don't know how, like, I don't think it's mega broad reaching.
Dude, whoever does that's gonna fucking slay. Like, being from my world and like knowing like the supplement game. So like I own a payment processing business, and like nutraceuticals, that's my stuff. And no, like if I look at Matt, for example, right? Or even you with 400,000 followers who are probably pretty fucking engaged and like fans. And a lot of them are like, do you have any idea what portion of them like are actual CrossFitters?
I assume a reasonably high portion of them. I don't really know though. Actually,
Right.
I don't really know. I'd be hard to actually guess on.
Right. So whenever a guy like you know, I like, you could make millions like in supplements.
Yeah, I think I'd assume that most of my following touches like the greater fitness industry at large. I don't know, like CrossFit's all like it is fairly niche. I think that the following is very fanatical, but I don't
super cult like, dude.
Yeah, I don't think it's
even
such
in,
a
like, dude, I live in Springfield, Missouri, like middle of nowhere, right? No big time entrepreneurs have ever been from where I'm from. Everybody in my local market is like, what the fuck does that Brodie guy do? Like, I'm a freak here, right? But the CrossFit following even here is stupid strong and big.
Missouri, I'm trying to think. Isn't Brooke Wells from like Missouri? She went to university there. I think there's been a couple reasonably good athletes from like around the area. I mean, Missouri. I don't know about near Springfield, but
yeah, I mean, there has been good athletes from here, and we have good sports teams, like good major sports teams here.
Yeah, like some good university teams and stuff there too. So
yeah. Like I went to school at the University of Missouri.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Millions to be made in supplements. That's what we were talking about.
Look into it.
When you're ready, let me know. I'll push you in the right direction.
Will do. And yeah, so to get back to for like who do you like to watch thing, it's kind of interesting because people are very like, there are still people who are like exceptionally good in certain areas, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to just watch at like epic performances where people just like, some guys will blow me out of the water and things, and they'll blow the whole field out of the water, and you're like, what just happened? But it's
just someone random.
There's like some guys who just don't look like they should be able to do the things they're doing, right? Like there's like Cody Anderson comes to mind, Logan Collins. There's a couple guys that are like got to be like 5'5", like 150, like weigh like 150 pounds, but they're moving weight like unbelievable.
Who is Cody Anderson?
He's a former gymnast, and like lately I've seen he's been like clean and jerking like 360 and things like that. Like he's so strong, but he's small. He's a small dude. So like that to me is super impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and he is a small dude.
That sort of stuff is just super impressive. You know, like when you watch like, it's funny too because I think in the top whatever at 5 or something like that, top 10 even, it sort of like narrows down, and people are similar size. Matt's a bit shorter than the rest of us, but like people are like big and strong, and like we look like we should be able to do a lot of that stuff. But there's some guys who just like are sneaky, and it's fun to watch them do some incredible things. You're just like, man, I didn't think you would be able to do that, and it's cool.
Yeah, what a fun environment, because I mean it's like CrossFit relatively new. Like you're of the first generation that is like, this shit is really popular. Like you're at the dawn of something that I mean is generational. That's really cool. That's fucking sick.
It's been interesting to see the growth because from when I started, like my first major competition would have been like 2014. And now like 5 years later, like even just seeing the growth, then the system's changed twice in that time. And it's growing a lot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the new shift and how this new system plays out. I think everybody's really curious.
Did you ever even imagine that you would be doing this? Like whenever you just went to do CrossFit with some of your buddies, you know what I mean? Like went to work out with your buddies.
That's what I mean. It snowballed out of control, and I don't know. Now I've lost control of the whole thing. But no, I know it's definitely, I would have never have for sure, not in a million years. But hey, I'm happy to enjoy the ride while it's here.
Totally. Well, it's about time to wrap this thing up. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
So best place to track me down is just through Instagram, realistically. My handle is at @Vellner, and I have an athlete page on Facebook that's just Patrick Vellner as well, but I feel like it's not as well maintained as my Instagram. And my
I will link both of those in the show notes.
But yeah, again, I'm not super active on Twitter either. Like Instagram's kind of my main social media device. So yeah, follow along. Check out some cool pictures. Every now and then there's a shirtless one. So
yeah, for the ladies. There you go. Well, dude, I tell you what, let's stay in touch. Why don't you let me know when you're doing a competition in the States? I'd love to just come watch you and have dinner or whatever.
I'll be in Ohio on May 18th, 19th.
Where at?
The Rogue Equipment headquarters in Ohio. I don't actually know exactly where it is, but
Rogue headquarters.
Like Rogue Fitness headquarters, yeah.
Yeah. I'll look that up. Yeah, I mean,
there's a major competition there, and that's going to be my tune-up competition. And old Matt Fraser is going to be there too, so it should be fun.
Ooh, mano y mano.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go. Well, dude, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been an incredible conversation. I mean, my listeners are going to take a ton of value from it.
Awesome. Cool. I hope so. I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk soon.
Yeah.
Peace.